check levels. There we are. Hello. As always, we must begin our journey double checking that my things sound okay. Because we're a one person job and sometimes we need to fidget with things. Okay, that sounds good. Oh, is that really volume all the way up? Ugh. So then we will adjust both of these things. Because ideally, I want to be able to, if my phone volume was all the way up, you should be able to hear me at all. Because that's cool. Maybe that's why my volume was so high. Because then you could hear me. And being able to hear me is slightly the point of all this, isn't it? Call me conceited. Oh, we're starting to get echo? That's cool. Echo is not... God, why can't I have volume? Why can't we have volume? Still want to keep going. Just honestly feel like maxing it out. I don't want to, the reason I don't want to max it out is because I don't want to, blow the speaker. But also, this phone was at, max volume and you couldn't hear me. And that's not ideal. You don't know what that noise was. That wasn't a copyrightable sound. I don't know why I'm getting so many notifications on this phone. I'm not hearing any music either. That's rude. Right? What's going on with music? What's happening with everything? What is the world come to? Hello. We're trying. There's so many. Did I break everything? Maybe. Who knows? Possible. It's very possible. Is there even music playing? Maybe that's the problem. I'll give that a try. If I don't break everything else in my setup trying to do that. No, there's music. There is music indeed. And there's a cat behind me. You can kind of see her. You can kind of see a tail there. Just a tishbit. Just a tishbit though. Not too much of a tail. Yeah, but I think we are at a good settling point. Yeah. Just realized my mic is also in the shot. I think we figured something out. I think this works. I think this works. Okay, well, salutations friends, my name is Brianna Tsukiyama Bond, otherwise known as No Ordinary Scholar, and welcome to my review of The Sun and the Void. I have complicated feelings about this book. let's start with a description of the book. And it's really interesting because, like, comparing this to the next stream that I'm going to do, probably next week. Probably. On that one's going to be on The Dark Place. These are, like, this is a character story and that is a plot story. And you can tell because I could tell you, like, basically, like, I could tell you the entire, like, direction we are going to go, and that's still, like, and that would be, like, enough to, like, give you a hint of what's going on, but you still have, like, no idea what's going on. You do not have any information about, like, the heart of that story, and that's because it is in the development of these characters. Whereas that story, I feel like I have to tell you the entire plot in order to be able to talk about it at all, but that feels like it's giving away everything in the story. So there you go. Character character story, plot story. There you go. Let's get into the description of this book. So you have these two main characters, Reina and Eva. Reina travels through this, like, land. She's traveling to a place, I don't remember the place. And the purpose is because she wants to try and form family with her estranged grandmother. Her father moved away from her grandmother ages ago, and her father ended up dying. Her mother, I don't remember if her mother, like, died before she was born. They only talk about her father. But they move away. And so she doesn't have, her father ended up dying. She doesn't have any family, so she wants to try and be family with her grandmother. But as she is going there, she's attacked by, I don't know how to pronounce it, Tinieblas? Trash. Laugh at me. That was terrible. I don't know how to pronounce it. And they nearly rot out her heart, but Jima is able to save her using irido, which is a substance that is basically a conduit for the void god's magic. So in this world we have two gods. We have Chess, who is the sun god, and also can't pronounce it, Ramagut. We tried. Who is the void god, but he is described as basically being like a power hungry dude. He's not actually a god, but he got a bunch of power, and to try and play a god, he creates beings, but these beings don't have souls or hearts, and so they're monsters that try to kill people in very gruesome ways. This book is gory. For the record, this book is gory. So that happens. Grandmother's able to use irido to save her, and that is a conduit for Ramagut's power. I should stop saying that because I don't know what I'm saying. Reina now spends her time training to fight and training in the different types of magic that are in this land. Meanwhile, Ava's family is racist. The main trigger of the story is that Ramagut's claw is tearing through the sky. It is where, like, there's this strip of light in the sky, and that is the claw, and it is a symbol that if you conduct a specific ritual during the time that the claw is in the sky, that can help unseal him from the place Chess has put him in to keep him from returning to the mortal world. It can help unseal him. Maybe it'll fully release him. Maybe it'll just let him out enough to, like, get his hold on the world a little bit more. And whoever does it tends to be granted with lots of power. That's basically the story. And I have to talk about the story. Should I start with the good or should I start with the bad? Let's start with the bad. So race was really weird in this book. Race was really weird in this book. Let's talk about the one that I don't have like firm feelings against, because I was just not reading it intently enough to be able to make a real solid statement about how it's used in the book. But like, it is weird how some of these things do reflect back on like real world race, um including like making the dark skinned folk of this world like the primary slave owners, who are really like upset that they had to get rid of slaves. Granted, the book isn't like, there are two races of humanoid animals, and one of those was the slave race, but it's still, that was a weird choice, especially when paired with them, like the dark-skinned people of this world, the dark-skinned slave running folk of this world, calling one of the girls, who is both human and one of the animal being, she's a mix of those two, calling her a bachaka, which is a real word. That's a real word with real world history. And it's not like, that isn't just a term to mean mixed race. It is specifically rooted in colorism and anti-blackness. Like, a white Latin, if a white Latin has a child with a white European, that's not a bachaka. It is specifically having child with dark-skinned folk, and to have the dark-skinned folk of this world call her that is weird. It's weird. It's weird. Again, I was not reading intently enough to see if this is like a weird pattern set up in the book, or things that might not have been thought through long enough, but they were just things that like stuck out as icky at times, and like they were using it as a slur in this book. So that was weird. Again, let me actually look up one thing before we get on to how the racism as told through the story was also weird. Oh my god. So this is interesting. So race in the book, weird. And that's like, I do want to read the next book. And that's something I will be looking out for in the next book, is like, are we on the same page of when people say we want like morally gray characters, bigots aren't in the list. Bigotry is not morally gray. That's not like a quirky feature. And I just want to make sure we're clear and on the same page if I'm going to continue reading this book, because there were some iffy moments. Celeste, like falling back on bigotry, is only allowed to be a villain now. Like, I'm like that's what I mean. It's like, oh, but you want a morally gray character? No, I want a morally gray character that's not a bigot. Like, that's not an active bigot, not actively the same type of oppressor that like is in my character. And I want the story to at least acknowledge that that's how they wrote her. Like, if you're gonna have that character, like, you have to acknowledge that that's how you wrote her, and you have to be okay with me not liking her because of it. It's like, Celeste is a villain now. I can only experience her as a villain going forward. Javier, still a piece of shit. I don't care what he's going through. He's a shithead. Mayor, there was a weird moment where like she has a crush on Reina, and like Reina at some point was like, well, why do you care about me? And she gets flustered and drops a slur, and that's she can't say those no more. She's not allowed to say those no more. Like, that's a weird move anyway. And I know the point is for her is that she didn't know it was a slur, maybe, or like she didn't know the history behind it or something like that. She's not allowed to say it anymore. But yeah, I would say Reina is a morally gray character. Celeste is a bigot. There's a difference. And I would like it if we could keep clear the lines there. I would say Ava, morally gray character. Celeste's a bigot. Let's keep the plot on this one, please. Please, okay? Yeah, so that was that issue. My next big issue, and this is like the biggest issue that I have, is so this ritual that you have to do in order to get the void god, release the seal, all of that. It calls for a sacrifice of his 9 wives. And like there's gonna be spoilers, right? It calls for a sacrifice of his 9 wives. And Reina's grandmother, Doña Ursulina, has convinced so many people that when you're talking about the god, like who like created monsters that just like ruin people, like steal someone's humanity, she is convinced that the sacrifice is needed. She's convinced so many people, told so many people, gotten them to believe her, that the sacrifice he needs to come back is just a little nick of blood from these 9 wives. And the last of my suspension of disbelief was given to believe that Reina and the Caudillo, I believe, yeah, like that those two, I maybe they believe her because they are just so damn desperate. But Javier is a master of magic. It is a different type of magic than than the Void God's magic. But he is a master of magic. So you are not on heaven, earth, the void, or my dick. You're not going to convince me that Javier genuinely believed that, again, this power-hungry monster of a man that played gods and created monsters that destroy humanity just wants like a little nick of blood. That's all the sacrifice you need. You're like, how does anyone believe it? And I like, it's hard to believe that like, honestly, I'd be willing to believe the Caudillo was ready to go along the whole way. It's hard to believe that Reina did not stop for like, but I'll give it to you because she also has some other things going on, so she might not be thinking critically. But not Javier. I cannot believe that he was fooled on this. And it's like it's such a massive plot point. Like the story hinges on at least those two, Reina and the Caudillo, not figuring it out. And I'll try to ignore it. Javier could have just known. Javier could have just known and been willing to go full force with this whole thing. And that would have been fine. That would have probably made sense with his character. Like, if we're being honest, the dude essentially wanted to rape one of the girls. Like, rape his niece till the end of time. So yeah, sure, fine. He wants to murder girls. That would have worked too. Like, that made sense with the character. And I don't know why we're acting like, oh no, that's a line he never wants to cross. Because like you set him up as someone who absolutely would have crossed that line long ago, especially with it, like, him seeking power from it. Like, would have made sense for the character. I think it is exclusively because Ava kind of sort of loves him, and in order for Ava to not be a character that's harder to love, you need her to not love a power-hungry murderer. And, you know, I feel like we could have just gone a couple steps forward with both of them. I feel like we could have gone a couple steps further into the void with both of them, and that would have made far more sense for the story. Or we could have just, like, I honestly feel like that should have been something that should have been reworked entirely, because that's so absolutely fucking ridiculous. Now, my biggest problem of all is that in spite of all of these things I've listed, oh, actually no, there's one more bad thing that I forgot to take note of earlier. This book could have been at least 100 pages shorter. So, like, it took me so long to get through this book, because when I originally signed up for the ARC for it, something, like, wherever I looked said it was like 400 pages, and I was like, sure. And then I got to it, I'm like, damn, I feel like I should be hitting, like, we should be starting the climax of a book by now, but this thing's telling me I'm only 30% of the way through, and the cognitive dissonance of that fucked with my head. I could not get through it. I was struggling so much. But the book ended up being, someone estimated it was like closer to 600 pages, and I would agree with that. That was rough. And frankly, it could have been at least 100 pages shorter, because, like, purely because there were so many points throughout the book where the narration would describe something and then the character would immediately say it in just, like, in other words. Like the narration would be, Raina felt butterflies shoot from her belly to her fingertips. And then her next thing would say, her next narration would be, I don't know, I just feel so nervous whenever I'm around Celeste. Something like that. And it would be, except like, the narration would be a page long, and then the description would be like half a page, like the character saying it would be half a page long, and we didn't need that. We didn't need that at all. Again, especially with the fatigue I was getting because of the cognitive dissonance with the length of the book, it got exhausting. There was a point, and, like, it did push me to, like, start skimming through the book, because so much of it was just not, like, I couldn't do that anymore. But in spite of all of these bads that I had with the book, I had a fun time. It was a great story. One of, like, the best things about the book, again, we're doing spoilers here. So we have the sun god and the void god. They basically choose beings that are going to be their, I've been using the word conduit a lot lately, and I don't want to say that, but, like, basically, like, these hosts is probably is a much better word. They're choosing beings that are going to be their hosts, and, like, be their, like, chosen saviors, whatever, you know? And the story has Raina do some horrifically fucked up shit. This is why, like, she's a morally great character. She just does some fucked up shit. And there's a point where she, like, there's a blade, a blade made out of the sun god's power, Chess's power, and it literally was not until she physically, like, was shown to be the only person to pick it up that I was like, holy fucking shit, she is actually going to be his chosen one. And I was still, and, like, the thing is, it, like, in theory, it shouldn't have taken me that long. There are two POVs, and one of these people has explicitly been, like, interacting with the Void God, like basically with the Void God. Like he's sent fucking characters to like nod at her, give her thumbs up, like let her know she's doing his work. So we know she's going to be the Void Gods. And there's one other character that has a POV, that has a main POV. It makes sense. It only makes sense that she would be the Sun Gods host. But like, even when we got to the point showing that like we were starting to look for someone who was going to be like the Sun God's chosen one, you could not, it took me seeing it with my own eyes to actually believe it was going to be her. And I think that is fantastic writing. I think the descriptions, when they weren't like overly redundant, were amazing. A thing that I really liked with this book is because I was picking up and putting it down due to the everything I just explained. I was picking it up and putting it down a lot. And a thing that I really liked about it was that the book kind of seemed made for that. There are a lot of different time jumps throughout the book. And so it felt like I was coming in and out of phases of life with these characters as I was getting in and out of phases of reading it. And I also really liked that. I think that made it so easy to jump back into reading it. It felt like I was like, there was no trouble getting re-pulled back into the world because it was set up in that way. Though granted, there were times where we'd have a time jump and they don't say that until a hot minute into it. And that was also a cognitive dissonance of like, I don't know how these characters have developed if I don't know like that it's been a year. No. Like if I don't know that a year has passed, it's hard for me to process like the characters' relationships. It's hard for me to understand like why, who, what, when, where, why, and how the relationship is going. But overall, like I had such a fun time with this book. I really did. And I will be reading book 2 for sure. And I do hope it's a little shorter. Is if for no reason than just to get out some of that redundancy. But that is all for me. My life is falling apart right now, so I'm gonna deal with that. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, valedictions, friends.